So picture this. You've just wrapped up a massive construction project. Yeah, it was late, but hey, the client took the keys, everyone shook hands, and you moved on. But then, 6 months later, an email drops into your inbox. It's the client, and they want to hit you with a huge penalty for that delay. Can they even do that? Let's dive into this, because this scenario is very real, and the stakes are incredibly high.
So yeah, that's the big question, right? You've done the work, you've got that handover certificate signed and sealed, but the final account isn't quite settled yet. Then, completely out of the blue, this threat of delay damages, we're talking potentially millions, just reappears. It feels totally unfair, but the real question is it legal?
You know what? We're going to treat this like a detective story, a case file. We've got a 6-month silence, followed by a surprise claim. To solve this mystery, we've got to look at the evidence. And in our world, the evidence is always in one place: the contract.
Okay, first things first, let's get our language right. FIDIC contracts are super specific. They almost never use the word penalty. Instead, you'll see delay damages. Think of it as a pre-agreed charge for every single day the project runs late. It's not some random fine they pull out of a hat, it's a built-in part of the contract.
So let's map out how this whole thing went down. The original completion date, that came and went. Then, for 6 long months, work just kept going. Not a peep from the client about penalties. Then, you finally hand over the project, a certificate is issued, and only then, after all that, does the client suddenly threaten to claim those damages. That silence, that's the crucial clue.
So where on earth do we find the answer? Well, it all comes down to the rulebook you're playing by. The entire outcome of this multi-million-dollar question hinges on one single crucial detail. Which version of the FIDIC contract are you using?
And that brings us to our two main suspects, the 1999 edition and the 2017 edition. The best way to think about them is like this. The 1999 version is the gray area. Its rules are a little fuzzy, a bit more open to argument. The 2017 version, though, that's the ticking clock. It is precise, it is strict, and it is all about deadlines. Let's investigate them one by one.
All right, let's crack open the first case file, the easy one, the FIDIC 2017 contract. If your project is running under this rulebook, the answer is actually pretty black and white, and it's all about following procedure.
See, under Clause 20.2.1, the 2017 contract has this very strict rule called a notice of claim. And here's the kicker. It applies to everyone. It's not just for the contractor anymore. If the client wants to make a claim for anything, and that includes delay damages, they have to follow this exact first step.
And here is that ticking clock I was talking about. The client has exactly 28 days to issue that notice of claim from the moment they knew about the issue. In our case, that's the day your project officially went past its completion date. Not 29 days, not around a month, 28. It's a hard deadline.
So what happens if they miss that deadline? Well, the contract's own wording is absolutely brutal. If you miss that 28-day window, your claim is time-barred. You have, and I'm quoting directly here, no entitlement. That's it. The door doesn't just close, it slams shut and bolts itself. So, the verdict for our first case file? It's pretty open and shut. By waiting 6 months and completely failing to issue that notice of claim within 28 days, the client has, in all likelihood, completely lost the right to claim those delay damages. Their silence was a fatal error for their claim. Case closed. But that was the easy one. Now we have to wade into much murkier waters. What happens if you're working under the older FIDIC 1999 contract? Well, my friend, this is where we enter the gray area.
The 1999 contract doesn't have that strict 28-day kill switch for the client. Instead, Clause 2.5 says the client must give notice of their claim as soon as practicable. And that one little phrase, as soon as practicable, is the source of endless legal battles. I mean, what does that actually mean?
And this is where you get the legal tug-of-war. The client's going to argue, hey, there's no hard deadline, so I can make my claim any time before we issue the final payment certificate. But you, the contractor, have a powerful comeback. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Waiting 6 months, saying absolutely nothing, and only bringing this up after we've handed over the keys? There's no way that's as soon as practicable. That's an ambush.
So if you find yourself in this spot, what's in your defensive toolbox? Well, you've got some heavy hitters. First, the late notice argument. They simply did not act as soon as practicable. Second, you can argue waiver or estoppel, which is a legal way of saying their silence and their actions led you to believe they weren't going to make a claim. And third, a great practical point. If you still have unresolved variations in EOT claims, how can anyone even calculate the final delay yet? The goalposts are still moving.
Okay, so we've examined both case files. We've seen the ticking clock of the 2017 rules and the legal swamp of the 1999 version. Let's bring it all together and deliver the final verdict.
So let's just boil it all down. Under FIDIC 2017, can the client claim the penalty? The answer is probably no. They missed that rock-solid 28-day deadline, and that's usually fatal. Under FIDIC 1999, the answer is maybe. They can certainly try, but you have some really strong defensive arguments that their claim is defective because they waited way too long.
Okay, knowing the rules is great, but what do you actually do the moment that surprise email lands in your inbox? Let's walk through a step-by-step defensive playbook.
Okay, pen and paper. Step 1. Immediately identify your rulebook. Are you in a 99 or 17 world? That changes everything. Step 2. Get your own house in order. Prepare your extension of time case. Gather every single record of delays the client caused. Step 3. Respond in writing, and do it fast. State very clearly that you do not accept their claim and explain exactly why it's time-barred or improper. And finally, Step 4. If they keep pushing, stop arguing over email. Use the formal dispute mechanism that's built right into your contract. Escalate it properly.
And that really brings us to the final and maybe most important takeaway. All of this stress, all this cost, all this time fighting, it's all avoidable. So as you head into your next project, maybe it's worth asking yourself, what's the one conversation you can have up front about how you'll communicate, about how you'll handle these clauses that can make sure there are no 6-month surprises waiting for you down the line?